The recruiting momentum continues on Locked On Badgers. John Garcia Jr. joins the show to chop it up with the latest Wisconsin football commits.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Ryan Herrings, your host of Locked On Badgers. Thank you again for joining the show. Recruiting momentum continues. As mentioned, we're going to talk about the latest Wisconsin Badgers commits with John Garcia joining the show. And John, I want to start with this guy just committed today. By the way, if you hear noise in the background, I have a little construction outside my road, so I'm going to try to mute it when I can. But big time commit just happened right before we got to sit down and talk. So we talked a little offline about it. Christopher Terek, a 6'6", 295-pound offensive lineman out of Illinois, the fifth Illinois guy in this class for Wisconsin commits, had offers from Michigan, Iowa, big-time offensive line pipeline type schools. What can you tell us a little bit about his game? What have you seen on film and kind of building out that offensive line class?
Yeah, I'll start at the end there, Ryan. Building this O-line class, you've got to start to, I guess, diversify what that group looks like. And I think here you get a guy where you could envision him as maybe a right tackle or kick him inside down the line because he's a big physical mauler, a little bit more raw than polished at this stage of the game and more comfortable run blocking, which is certainly normal and expected at that position. But yeah, a massive human being who apparently, was really leaning elsewhere. And I think that's what's surprising about this, not only, getting a commit right before we're on, but a guy who was more linked to Michigan or Iowa at different points during his recruitment. So obviously a Big Ten kid, an Illinois kid where Wisconsin's been kind of surprisingly potent in this class of 2023. It makes you kind of wonder, hey, Khalil Tate, that could be kind of the next domino to fall there. But I do think that this thing changed in a hurry when he got on campus for his official visit earlier this month. Again, he was leaning elsewhere, and all of a sudden he's a Wisconsin Badger. We've seen that with a few of these recent commitments where Wisconsin was hanging around, but not necessarily in the driver's seat yet after the visit, the full experience with your family in Madison. It kind of resonates. And I think once you dig into the history of the position and the consistency, stability, all those things, Wisconsin becomes a much more attractive option when you spend more time there.
Hey, so this is a bit of a high 3-star guy when I see him in the composite in those places in 86, 87. But as a talent evaluator, as a fan of college football, when an offensive line recruit can say, I have offers from Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, right? Is that about, especially in Big Ten country, that's the trifecta.
Yeah, especially from a Midwest kid. I'm glad you brought that up, Ryan, because I think, if you see that with an elite, Atlanta area kid or Texan, you don't weigh it as much. It's weird. Usually it's the opposite. Well, like more regionally, you put more stock into it. This is the opposite. If he's a hyper local kid or a Midwest kid, you almost think that those schools will slow play him, right? They're less populated areas. They're not the metros that everybody in every conference recruits, like some of the others that we mentioned. So I think when you're a Midwest kid and the Big Ten power programs are all over you, I do think it adds a little bit more value to that data point because they don't have to be as aggressive in theory because they're not in LA metros and Atlanta and Houston and Dallas and Miami. So I do think that's a good sign for the early trajectory of this kid. It looks like he had a bad injury a couple years ago and really had to begin to reshape his body. So you want to see that kind of fully realized as a senior, where he's playing around the 300-pound mark as opposed to much more. So I do think the best football is well ahead for the latest Badger commitment. And I think that's good because a lot of times when we talk about Wisconsin O-line recruiting, it's high floor guys, polished guys up front. So to have a little bit more of a developmental type who maybe does need a year or two, I think that's a good thing. You have to stagger it at every position on both sides of the ball. You need to stagger not only the eligibility of talent, but also the readiness to play because, it's a business and roster management is kicking everyone's butt right now in college football. So if you counter high floor guys with high ceiling developmental types, I do think that helps you sustain strength at various positions. And obviously Wisconsin always wants to beef up front on offense and defense. And that's what we're seeing over the last few days.
So I want to again go back to, and I think that's a really good point with the high floor, high ceiling type staggering them, because to me, he's a different player than Joe Crocker, who we've talked about on the show, the big 6'6" tackle out of Tennessee, but also another guy who is a bit of a ball of clay. I think he's more of a tackle. I think this kid, Terek, is more of a guard, right tackle. But those are two kind of, to me, developmental guys with a lot of upside, a lot of size, but a little raw. Get him on campus for 2 years and see what you have. Do you think this impacts Crocker's recruitment at all? Or do you think they can kind of play together?
It shouldn't. I mean, I think Crocker is, I mean, we know, I mean, he's in love with Wisconsin. Michigan State's a legitimate threat. I mean, those are the two schools that have felt like they've separated from the rest of the pack here. So I do think that, he knows he's a priority at Wisconsin, even though, Terek was a bit more of a surprise relative to the timing and the rise of Wisconsin. I don't think this detracts a kid like Joe Crocker. And look, O-linemen know it takes the entire unit. So, if Wisconsin had 4 or 5 O-line commits, maybe I'd be like, hey, this was an interesting decision from Paul Chryst and company. But having just 2 and guys who aren't 100% left tackles on top of that, I do think that keeps Crocker very much in the crosshairs, and it definitely wouldn't surprise me if he was a Badger at the end of the day.
Hey, can you touch a little bit about, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here, but Illinois recruiting, Chicago recruiting in general, Wisconsin doesn't typically go down there often, doesn't get a lot of, we talked about it from the jump. This is the 5th player from Illinois in this class. Khalil Tate's still on the board as well. It could be 6. Is there a reason why Wisconsin or even schools like Wisconsin, Iowa, Purdue don't go into that area as often? Or is this something you think Wisconsin could make more of a pattern out of?
I think it has to do with not only other programs. Certainly, look, Notre Dame has so many bases, strong bases in Chicago. So I do think that traditionally they've been able to pull talent as well as anyone. Of course, Ohio State, Michigan can go almost anywhere and pull interest from talents. I think not only have those programs shifted a little bit in philosophy, especially Notre Dame and Ohio State recruiting so nationally. So I think that helps Wisconsin and some of the other schools, Iowa, in the area to go down to Chicago and have a higher clip, a higher chance of landing talent. But it seems like there's more talent in Chicago as well. And I think that's really where maybe it's more important to look at going forward. Obviously, the staff has some ties to the state of Illinois, but you just wonder if the talent pool is growing in the Chicago area, which makes sense, right? All the pandemic restrictions are behind us, so it's a little bit easier to find that next tier of talent, right? It's not as hard to go in and find a diamond in the rough with these restrictions off. So I do think that there's more talent and there's more availability for these coaching staffs to find all of the talent in all areas that connect to the Big Ten. And obviously Chicago, from a metro perspective, is really kind of ground zero in that conversation. So as more talent adjusts, in that Chicago area, I think every school in the region is going to try to pull in more. Obviously, Northwestern's in state, Illinois in state as well, and they're going to always have an impact and a feel there. But I do think the national perspective of Notre Dame and Ohio State in particular, Michigan as well, has really opened the door for more programs to factor in as the talent rises in the area as well. So fascinating. Definitely not something I thought we'd be talking about today, but yeah, Chicago's got to be more on my radar. I got to admit it.
Yeah, and it's interesting in terms of Wisconsin is one of the closest programs to Chicago. Madison is in, obviously southeastern Wisconsin. It's only a couple-hour drive. And we always hear, proximity to home in terms of importance for recruits. If you can go from Chicago and go play big football in Madison, that seems like an easier dip into that than Wisconsin going down to some of the other places they've tried to get into.
100%. We think of recruiting changing so much with these graphics and NIL and all this stuff, but there's still some foundational factors that really work in terms of winning recruiting battles, and certainly playing close to home. The ability to play in front of your family is still critically important for these prospects at every position in every part of the country. So yeah, that proximity doesn't hurt in the slightest.
All right, guys, this is, like I said, this is kind of a big-time commit, really out of the blue today. But coming up, we have another commit on the defense line, another big ugly, one of my favorites in the class. So we're going to break that down with John Garcia as well as we continue on this recruiting discussion. Today's show is brought to you by Rock Auto. Rock Auto remains your number one source in 2022 for all your auto part needs, car needs. It is the easy to use website. I've used it on my Jeep a lot, and it's much simpler than going to a store, talking to somebody who really doesn't have a vested interest in what you need. And you're going to pay 30, 50 to 100% more. That's money you can buy Johnny Davis rookie cards with, guys, Russell Wilson rookie cards with. That's money you can invest in other places. Don't waste the money. Don't waste the time. Go to rockauto.com. The website has drop-down menus. It's really intuitive. And Rock Auto is a family company. They've been doing it for 20 years. So you're going to save time, save money, support a really good, solid company that does it the right way. There's really no downside, everybody. And this is, again, you can get it whenever you need to. You don't have to go when the store's open or when it's convenient for them. Whenever you need to, you can get the part. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box? So they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices. All the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. Thank you again for making Locked On Badgers your first listen every day. Really, really appreciate it. We're going to bring John Garcia back in, and we're going to talk about Jamel Howard, Jamel Howard committed a couple days ago. We haven't had a chance to talk about him since the commitment, John. Honestly, one of my favorite recruits in the class because of the fit, because it's a 3-4 defense, because you need a guy you can't move, 320-pounder out of Illinois. What do you think about Howard? What about his game? How does he fit at the college level?
Love this kid. This is your Big Ten SEC interior defensive lineman. This is a kid who's physically ready to make an impact sooner rather than later. You got to be big, you got to be quick, you got to be forceful, you got to be unselfish to occupy that nose guard spot in a 3-4. And I see all of those boxes checked with the latest Badger commitment on defense. He's quicker than you think. And I think that's really what I took away from watching his tape. He's pretty consistent with his leverage for a 6'3", 6'4" guy, but I was really impressed with the short area quickness and redirection ability that you really don't talk about enough with big 300-pounders, 300-plus pounders on the defensive interior. We talk about them more as, hey, you need to occupy blockers. You need to create lanes for your linebackers. You need to, create a pile, if you will, on the interior. And I do think Howard can do those things, but there's also a quickness element here where he's getting in tackles for loss. If he's singled up on an offensive lineman, he's got a ton of ability to beat him with power or a little bit of quickness and some developing technique. So I do like kind of the all-around game of what Howard brings to the table. Look, at Wisconsin, he's probably – going to be more of an occupier, a guy who opens the door for others. But on occasion, I do think if he's singled up, particularly against a center, I do think he's just got some overwhelming power to combat what most of those guys bring to the table. So I like this get in multiple ways, especially on early downs and in a program like Wisconsin, in a conference like the Big Ten. The fit here is just rock solid. This is a November, December kind of kid, and that's when you want to be playing your best ball anyway. So I really like this get. And again, like you said, another Illinois recruit jumping in, for Wisconsin. At this point, it's like, that's the pipeline state in this class of 23. I know it's far from over, but it's just overwhelming and head turning to see that many prospects in that state at this level and going out of state when there's a couple of, Big Ten schools right around the corner.
I'm really excited that you also really like this kid's film, because I to me, when you look at recruiting rankings, and rankings better than anybody, you've been involved in it forever, the ins and outs. He's not a highly ranked kid. He doesn't have a big offer list. And I made a note when he was committed. This isn't a sexy commit. It's not a commit that raises the recruiting average, but this is a winning commit, and do players get almost pigeonholed a little bit? Like, can a 320-pound plugger actually be a 4-star without, unless you're like a Dentari Poe, that type of just freakish player, like, this might just be a 2-down guy, but on those 2 downs, this is such a winning player that you need in that 3-4. And I feel like the recruiting rankings don't necessarily reflect that, maybe the fit of it.
Yeah, I think, the height and weight hurts him from that optical perspective. And I think the modern direction of the game, where it's so pass first in nature, decreases his value before you ever watch one snap. Fair or not, that's just kind of the reality of trying to scout hundreds and thousands of players all at once. The trend on the interior on defense is 6'4", 270, not so much 6'3", 6'4", 325, right? So I think when there's such a discrepancy there, you've got to show some special traits. And I do think that there are some of these available. But again, I think you go back to the location, you go back to that, that 2 or 3 years ago, we weren't talking about this kid. So he's a relative late riser as an upperclassman. All those things factor in. And look, how often has he been seen by our industry? Yours truly included. I haven't been up to scout in the state of Illinois anytime recently. So I do think that all factors into where the ranking is today. But again, you expect the industry to adjust. Do your due diligence. Watch these kids for what they are and what they can be simultaneously. And I think in either direction, you really like what Howard brings to the table, because at a minimum, he's going to be a classic, 3-4 nose guard type. But at the ceiling level, I think he's a guy who, again, even at 325 pounds, can really win one-on-one and penetrate against the run and maybe the pass on those early downs. So I do think there is room to push that ceiling a little bit higher.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, to your point, at the minimum, he just feels like a rock solid commit, like a rock solid addition. And I actually thought, looking into his film, there's a lot of big guys who are leaners. He moves his feet pretty well, moves his hands pretty well. He's got some motor to him, trying to chase down plays. There's a lot to like there as a guy who isn't a high recruit, doesn't have a big time offer list. Coming up, I really want to have this conversation with you, and this might end up spilling into another show, but I want to get into it. Paul Chryst, the recruiter with the Wisconsin recruiting staff, and maybe start to talk about where they stack up in the Big Ten. So that's coming up on today's show. But first, today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs and information. The website is easy to use, very intuitive, and it's a place where this is a great place for futures, props, future wagers. We've talked about Wisconsin being over under 8.5. We talked about, if you want to take a chance, a few dollars, do it responsibly on who might win the NFL, the NFC, the AFC. Pennant races are going on. Free agency and NBA is about to start. You can take a really early look on some NBA futures. If you like the Clippers, if you like some team like that to bounce back, it's a great time to do it. The website is fun. There's Vegas online games as well. So if you're not into sports, you can also go there, do roulette, blackjack, online Vegas games, everything in one spot, including sports news. So you can get the latest on which coach is going where, which quarterback is going where. It's all on BetOnline. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device. Learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. And as always, we're going to bring John Garcia back in, finish off this show. I really want to start this conversation, and I think this is going to spill into a future episode as well. But from a high level, you follow this as close as anybody. The Wisconsin recruiting staff, captained by Paul Chryst, where, if you had to ballpark them, do you think they fit in the Big Ten hierarchy?
Oh, man, that's such a great question, Ryan. Obviously, it starts with Ohio State. Nobody's really going to argue that in any stretch. And that philosophy we talked about earlier, very national, very much we can go into Texas or Miami or California and pull elite prospects almost at will at times. So that philosophy, allows you to be, that first program mentioned in the Big Ten. I think after that, it's totally wide open. And I think that is where it's so fascinating. And I think that's why we've seen some fluctuation on the field beyond Ohio State and the Big Ten as well. We're seeing it in recruiting too. I think Penn State really dominant on the Eastern Seaboard, obviously in Pennsylvania, Philly, DC. They go down to Florida as well as any school outside of the region as well. So that philosophy brings in a little bit more skill position talent, speed, which is really what Penn State's known for, particularly on defense. So they're able to pull from that pipeline. Michigan wants to be national, but really they do their best work in the region, in Big Ten country, in my opinion. They dip down into the South on a consistent basis, but not as much as I would say Ohio State and maybe even Penn State in that conversation. I think Michigan State is the program trending up the most at this point. And probably not great news on this pod, but it's hard to ignore, right? Hard to ignore what Mel Tucker and company have been able to do over the last few years via high school recruiting and the transfer portal. And they are aiming to be truly national. They've been able to host elite prospects seemingly every weekend, but now you got to go land them. You got to go win some of those battles in Texas, in California, down in Florida, Georgia, et cetera. And I think Wisconsin's right in this next grouping for me. I think, Wisconsin and Iowa, in my brain, fair or not, feel similar. It's about fit. They stay in the region a little bit more. They do go outside for necessary spots, particularly in the secondary, where both programs are among the best in the country, really consistently over the last 10 years or so. But really, it's about the fit. And I think it's more about the fit than the flash at those programs. And I think that works there. I think you have to trust your evaluations. You have to be willing to develop and sell something other than the flash. I think other programs that are trying to trend up in the Big Ten, Maryland, Nebraska, for instance, they want to sell that flash. I mean, that's their goal. You could almost see it. Even Purdue with offensive recruiting, they've tried to go outside of the Midwest to sell flash and this higher profile, more explosive philosophy, and it's working to a degree. But I think Wisconsin and Iowa in particular, I'll link them together again. I think they just do what they do well, and they know it. They're going to recruit excellent on defense, particularly in the back seven. And then on offense, they're going to be great on the offensive line. They're going to be relatively safe at quarterback, and they want to push more on the outside with their pass catching targets. I think that's something that both programs are trying to move forward with, and I think that's the challenge and the biggest challenge ahead for each of them. It's the juice. Can you grab some juice on the outside to complement what we always know to be a solid run game, a safe foundation at quarterback, and an excellent defense year in, year out. So finding the fit there is a little bit harder to accomplish. Or I would say that's where maybe Wisconsin needs to stretch a little bit more, whether it's other regions, whether it's other avenues, maybe taking a chance earlier on some more national recruits. I think those things could lead to a little bit more success on the outside. But we've also seen them try to address that in this class to date. So I like where the class is right now. It's a balanced group. It's adding volume consistently and starting to address needs like the offensive line and wide receiver in particular. But you got to try to pull a little bit more national. And look, Wisconsin's in a huge national battle, right? Tackett Curtis is a guy that we're talking about every week, it seems like, for good reason. It's a true heavyweight battle there. It looks like LSU might be too little too late in that race, by the way. So I think that's good news for the Badgers. Obviously, he's a Louisiana kid at this stage. So it's going to be Ohio State, Wisconsin, certainly USC still in that conversation, but no LSU. So he's going to leave the region. And then those are the kind of battles you need to stay in, which Wisconsin's done a great job of, but you also need to start winning some of those to plant that flag a little bit more nationally.
Hey, let's finish on this. And again, this is a conversation that I want to continue, but we're going to spill it into another show. But I want to finish on this because I agree with everything you're saying. Wisconsin finds fits, they do that really well. And I think that's an underrated part of recruiting. Like, you have to find people that fit. But from a fan standpoint, that also feels a little bit like being called a game manager quarterback, right? Like, it kind of feels
nothing wrong with that.
That's where I wanted to ask, though, is Wisconsin finding fits because they're great at it? Or are they finding fits because they can't elevate to the point of landing the elite players on the edges? And that's probably a longer answer than we have time for, but just I like a very short strategic view of that type of a question.
Yeah, I think you've got to have a self-awareness. I do think that there's limited upside with certain positions optically in terms of when you get involved in some of these recruitments. So when you're coming from a program like Wisconsin, changing that philosophy and perception not only takes time, it takes that effort on the front end, and that comes with risk. That comes with a bit of a gamble. If you start to go after some of these guys and miss, while your competition, again, particularly in your own conference with the Iowas, even the Minnesotas of the world in the region, they're going to pull early and they're going to pull fits early. So you risk playing the long game with maybe a flashier player, but in the meantime, losing, a safer bet closer to home. That's the whole gamble of college football recruiting as a whole. So it takes time to go from kind of one side of the aisle onto the other, but it's worked for Wisconsin. And look, the game manager thing is like, it's the weirdest thing. Everyone looks at it as like it's such a bad thing, but quarterbacks who protect the football and play smart and efficiently win. And that's really what it comes down to. It doesn't have to be this 400 yards a game passing offense. That's never been a prerequisite for winning. Now, you've got to be able to throw the ball and play in clutch situations. That is always going to be the case in football. But yardage and those kind of things have never really correlated into true wins and losses. It's been an overall kind of grade. And I think when you want to push from one to the other, it takes a lot of time to change that focus. And in that transition, you can start to lose your way and lose some games along the way. So it's really hard to pull from the other direction. But I do think Wisconsin's trying. I think They're going to get more athletic at quarterback. That's something we've talked about, and they've got to push for more juice on the outside. So you can tweak a little bit without overhauling the entire philosophy. So that's the lane I'd try to stay in if I was Wisconsin.
Yeah, and to your point, it's worked, right? You don't want to change up something where Paul Chryst has won 70% of his games at Wisconsin. Teams would kill for that winning percentage outside of Ohio State, Bama, Clemson. Everybody, he is John Garcia. Every week we try to get him on because he makes us all smarter. John, once again, thank you so much. I know you got to run to your next one, but thank you so much for joining the show. As always, we really, really appreciate the insight and the information.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, Ryan. Appreciate it.
As always. See you, John. Everybody, he is John Garcia. Just a tremendous asset to be able to lean on to get some recruiting insights, some recruiting knowledge. 2 big commitments this week. I appreciate everybody jumping on the show, listening. It really means a lot to me. If you do like the show, take a second. It's a free way to support. If you enjoy it, leave a comment, leave a review, leave a like, subscribe to the show on YouTube, subscribe on the pod, leave a review on the pod. It really does make a difference. It really does help. With that said, guys, appreciate everybody tuning in, listening. Till next show, we'll continue bringing out the best content that we can find and the best guests that we can find. Another good one coming up tomorrow. We're going to do a basketball State of the Union show. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Until next time, on Wisconsin.